professional leverages 25 plus years expertise in financial re-engineering, risk management, and innovative solution. Multiple awards recipient renowned for value maximizing approaches, automation and process re-engineering, yielding impactful results. So a big round of applause for him, everyone.
Probably this is one of the toughest sessions which I'm going to be handling. And I need your blessings for the session. But let me tell you one secret which during lunchtime the organizers have told me. When I sent this presentation copy, they said since it's a post-lunchtime session, we should have something exciting. So what they said, they created many mistakes in the presentation, right? And they said, the person who identifies maximum mistakes will get an award at 7 o'clock in the evening. That's where probably needs your attention and try and see how many mistakes you can find. Okay. So coming to the topic, I think the topic which is ESG is a very, very vast topic. One can write encyclopedia on it. It's a very in-fashion topic which many countries are currently trying to implement, and similar situation we are in, we meaning our country, where we are also trying to see how best we can implement ESG. Now, it is not a project, it's a journey. Of course, it will continue. But the fact remains is, when we talk about ESG, we know why it is important for us. We have seen many events related to ESG, which very in a recent past we saw people talk about the impact of environmental changes. Could be pandemic, could be flooding, could be global warming, could be greenhouse gases impacting weather. All of that actually encompasses the E part of it. So while I will talk about this topic, but my session is going to be about 15 minutes. So not dwelling too much into this, as I mentioned, that's a very vast topic. I'll be just briefly touching upon the introduction and then how CFOs can play a role in that in terms of how it impacts their day-to-day working and also reporting requirement. And later on, we'll be talking about how does it involve other stakeholders. So do you have a pointer or the change? Acha, this one? Green one? Okay. So this is what ESG we've been talking about. But when it comes to ESG, we know that there are three pillars, ESG. Three different pillars are there. E stands for environment, S for social, and G for governance. Environment itself is an encyclopedia. S is again social when you talk about fair remuneration being paid to employees, fair practices of employment, equal opportunity, and also we talk about community engagement, working conditions in the office. So all that gets covered under S. G is nothing but we all know better governance, which is corporate governance. We talk about risk assessment or risk management, or we have cyber security, ethical working. All that falls under G. While we know this basic ingredients of ESG, I have tried to define ESG in two different ways. Only middle part is change. Environment, sustainability, and governance. We know that most of the businesses depend on human capital, manpower. So how do you make sure that human practices or the social part is made sustainable? And more so, if I take you to the next definition, which is guarding against emergency situation. While ESG stands for environment, social, and governance, here we are talking about emergency situation guard. And we have faced this emergency recently, we talked about, and we are still facing in many places. Right? Any different point of view here? So now, having understood the basic pillars and how does it operate and where we are in this journey, let's move on to see that what is the role of CFO in an organization to incorporate ESG practices so that the organization benefits, the large stakeholders benefit out of it. So I have listed here 4 different roles in which CFOs can incorporate ESG practice in the businesses, which is as a catalyst, where we talk about different areas of operation. He incorporates ESG practices in all the matrices he can look for, so that people, all stakeholders are involved in terms of implementing ESG journey. Then strategists. We'll talk about long-term planning. We know that CFOs participate as a business partner in formalizing a strategy and also implementing those. So when you are planning for those business plans, or you're making business plans, that's where as a part of strategy you can look at what kind of investments are required, what kind of investments we need to do, which will make sure that they are risk proof, or at least majority of the risk is mitigated. Stewardship, ensuring that what reporting requirements are, because we know there are reporting requirements related to emission, reporting requirement related to your diversity, and so many things are there. There are, I think, the largest number of KPIs you will find going forward will be under ESG in each of the 3 categories: environment, social, and governance. Last when I counted, there were 78 KPIs which were to be reported. Maybe it's just adding on more and more to that, which will be forming part of reporting requirement. Moving to operator, I think that's where ensuring that ecosystem is enabled, whether right measurement systems are available, right computer systems are made available for measuring all the KPI reporting requirement. That's where all these 4 roles becomes very very important for organization to for a CFO to incorporate as and when the respective issues come up. Now, here is in the financial, when CFO deals with financial investment decision making, the kind of things he needs to take into account. When we talk about the first thing is risk management, when we know that most of the investment decisions are routed through CFO's office. How do you make sure the decisions which you are making for future, especially for long-term investments, are taken into account, all the risks related to environment or social or even governance point of view, all the things are taken care. All the risks are mitigated or minimized to the extent that the strategy of the business does not get derailed, or there are no shocks. Now, case in example, if a plastic company or let's talk about our own, my own logistic company. If we try to invest more into fleet of diesel trucks, we know what's going to happen, right? That's why the long-term investment cannot be in trucks which have carbon house gases emitting for a long time. You need to look at whether electrical vehicles will do or hydrogen vehicles, which needs to be focused on. So those kind of strategic decisions, which investment decision which has to be taken into account, one needs to take into account how the risks are getting managed. Long-term value creation, we've seen the companies, those who have managed so far or reported good practices on ESG, they've been valued much higher as compared to their peers. You know why? Because there's a high level of sustainability, or business models are going to be sustaining for longer term, and that is why investors give high value to them. On the reverse of it, the companies who are into high impact to the environment or on a social fabric, those companies will face challenge in terms of getting right values. Stakeholders management, I'll be talking about it that later on. There are lot many stakeholders, be it employees, be it investors, be it regulators, all of them are stakeholders. Those needs to be engaged right in the beginning before you commit any investment, so that all these perspectives are taken care in business strategy. Regulatory and legal consideration, we know many requirements which are coming up. We know that many places the government or the regulators have been putting thresholds through which needs to be complied with. Like I was referring to earlier about the plastic example, where you cannot now use a plastic which is less than 80 micron or 50 micron, so to say. If you use below that, you are not complying with the requirement and you will be subject to penal actions. So any such use where thresholds are being put up by regulators, obviously those needs to be taken into account. Investors' demand reputation, I think investors' demands have been increasing over a period of time. Initially, maybe, a lower level of demand as the, things progress, things are evolving. People have started asking more and more questions, and more so now, if you go to any of the AGMs, you find investors talking about what company has done about sustainability. What is a diversity? What kind of diversity company has it? What kind of employees are being, employed by the organization? So all those pressures from the stakeholders and investors obviously will weigh on the reputation of company. So all this has to be taken into account when a long-term financial decision is taken by the CFO's office. Then reporting requirement. So far it was more on the investment decisions. Now, so many reporting requirements are there, be it, your emission data or various KPIs, which I spoke about, 78 KPIs. So all those things have to be reported, but before that, we need to have back-end ready for that. And that's where so many challenges are there currently, which I think almost every CFOs will be facing, where there's a need of reporting on ESG. When you talk about that what data is required to be collected, the first question could be. Second is where the data is residing. Third, how do I use the data? And to whom I need to report and how much to report? These are the basic questions which needs to be responded while we talk about challenges. That how data mining will happen, where the data sources are, whether data is right source or the one source of truth. Because you will find many times data is residing in multiple places, and when you match both the data sources, data does not match. So which is the right data? So all those challenges, then you have different expectation from different stakeholders. You have a separate, employees will have different, expectation. Investors have got different expectations, and so on and so forth. Where all those will converge. And because reporting has to happen, this is one reporting which has to be, used by everybody. So when we talk about, greenhouse gases, those reporting obviously has to be not only just used by the people who are investing in the company, probably that will get added up, and to look at it, how does country's emission, adds up to those numbers, or whether those numbers are right. And what will be the measurement of when you do not have direct information about emission? When you are using third-party, suppliers or vendors, how do you measure their emission? So those kind of challenges are there, which needs to be taken into account, and I have put down a certain action plans, which I thought could be appropriate at this point of time, which can be taken into account. Obviously, it is not a science through which we have just mentioned it. These are just thoughts. Maybe it can be, again refined further for a better reporting requirement. Here are the stakeholders, which I spoke about earlier. There are different stakeholders which needs to be looked at it, or the objective of ESG to be met. We know we spoke about brand value. Today, companies, those who have done well on ESG side, we know how they have been valued, how their reputation is much higher, how their the market capitalization has improved. Of course, both go hand in hand, not only just reputation, even creating value by using means of sustainability, by using green, I would say green area related works, say electrical vehicles, or we talk about sustainable energy, those kind of things. Attract and retain talent. That's another thing which now new age generation, you will find it difficult to attract people. Those companies will find it difficult to attract those who are not into sustainability, those who are not looking at work-life balance, those who are not providing good working environment. Gone are the days we have taken working condition, as granted that yes, people need job, they will do job in whatever situation they would be. Now people are demanding a clean, healthy working environment. And on top of it, when I talk about work-life balances, new gen is not ready to work beyond office hours. Or rather, even in office hours, they would try and look at it work from home so that they can optimize on the time. So those are behavioral changes. We already have, ESG ratings, which are out in public domain. Obviously, those are not, at the highest level. There's a scope for improvement. So by taking additional steps, one can, improve those ratings. Mitigate risk we spoke about earlier. Governance practices obviously needs to be improved because there's a lot of reporting requirement on ESG. And beyond that, there are many returns which need to be filed with the authorities. So obviously, governance practices have to improve. Access to capital becomes easier when you are in this domain where if you need to raise capital, obviously incentives are available. At a low cost, you can raise capitals. And of course, when you use, green products, initially it may sound as costlier, but for long term, it will be lower cost. Like we talk about electrical vehicle, where initially investment may be high, but running cost or operating cost is lower. So I think those kind of things, one can look at it. I guess on time, perfect time. Thank you. Sure.
Thank you for an amazing session post-lunch. Now, I would be requesting Mr. Rajesh Patel, CFO, Mahanagar Gas Limited, to please come on the dais for felicitation.